Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As people start entering into the webinar here, I just want to make sure you all can hear me okay. So if you could, just please take a moment, open up the chat on the bottom of your screen and just say hello. Let me know who you are, where you're listening in from. And I would also like to remind you in the chat, you can see there's a little drop down there where it says send your message to panelists. If you click on that little drop down, it'll say send your message to panelists and all attendees. Select that one. This way other people on the call know who you are, where you're listening in from, and we can have an interesting chat while this great session gets going here. Okay, additionally, we're hopeful that we can get to some Q&A throughout the whole program. We've got a lot of information we're going to share with you today. But if you do have a question, feel free to use that Q&A section down at the bottom of your screen as well to ask your question. And if for whatever reason we don't get to the question, we've been doing a pretty good job of following up with participants throughout all of our sessions this past year, leveraging Zoom and getting answers to those questions. So we'll do our best to moderate the questions as they come through without interrupting too much of the program, but we do want to make sure we hear from you and take the opportunity to get your questions answered, okay? So for those of you who might be joining us for the first time, and if you're new to the Business Council or our Chamber Network, I'd especially just like to welcome you folks. I know it's been an interesting year, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day today to join us for what, again, is going to be a very relevant conversation. A special welcome and thank you to all those that continue to support us year after year. It certainly has been one heck of a year. But with the support of all our members, you know, the municipalities, the state and the local organizations, we've been able to continue to be the leading business organization here in Greater Bridgeport for businesses large and small, and pretty much everyone in between. So thank you all for your support this past year. I do have to take a moment to thank some individuals that have provided myself personally and our office with their leadership and counsel throughout the year, as we've navigated really what is something that I think no one really could have planned for or expected. So I'd like to just start off with acknowledging our small but mighty staff, starting with Erin Mercedes, our Director of Leadership Programming. If you may recall, those of you who are close to her and us here at the office, you know, she was coming off maternity leave when the pandemic hit. And I got to tell you, she's done a fantastic job with the support of her several boards. On carrying on some of our most valuable programming, you know, with the guidance of Angela Pellegrino Grant of Career Resources. She also chairs our Leadership Greater Bridgeport program. And for those familiar with that program, you know it's a program that's in person, it's very intimate. We bring leaders of the business community together. And with the pandemic, they've been able virtually to convert this program into a virtual program these last several months. And it's still proven to be a very impactful experience for the 20+ people that will be graduating later this month. So hopefully you'll join us for our commencement ceremony for those folks as well. And then Amanda Meason, I'd like to acknowledge, of Sterling House Community Center, and she also chairs the Women's Leadership Network under Erin's leadership program offering that here at the BRBC. And Amanda's done an awesome job too, growing that network, especially this year where, you know, just people just needed a place to get valuable resources, information, and what beautiful place to have the Women's Leadership Network under her leadership and guidance grow this past year. And it has been growing. So thank you, Amanda. And of course, our chair of our Thrive Emerging Professionals group, Minette Macias, who's also leveraged the technology to keep our young pros connected. That's been kind of a relatively easy lift, but they started an online newsletter and other activities virtually here as over the past year. And we're looking forward to seeing that group continue to grow in the Greater Bridgeport region, because I do believe it's a major asset for us as we start grooming and looking to bring together the future leaders of the Greater Bridgeport region. So thank you, Minette. Going back to our staff, I have to acknowledge Kate Pipa, our events coordinator. You know, I think I speak for most of us when the pandemic hit. You know, we were all kind of caught like a deer in headlights, trying to figure out, you know, the best way, how are we going to keep our constituents engaged, continue to provide valuable programming, and not just gathering for the sake of gathering, but to have real meaningful dialogue and conversations. And Kate has done an awesome job here at the office, leveraging technology putting together series like this workforce development series that we're going to talk some more about today, keeping all of our chamber meetings and committee meetings, on the calendars and moving forward, as well as all the informational sessions we've had this past year. I think I lost count at around 90 or 100 informational sessions we did last year, with touching thousands of people throughout the region. So beyond that, she also puts together our larger events like this, our annual end of year holiday party, our annual meeting last year. That was our first time we ever did one virtually. So really, truly remarkable. And now she's taken on and leading another program that we're going to be launching in the fall, our Back to Business Expo. So something that, get our business community charged up about now that things are opening up and being able to be brought back together in person. We're looking to pull that together for September. I believe the date's the 22nd of September, but a lot more information to come on that. And I also have to acknowledge Ed Lavernowich, president of the Bridgeport Economic Development Corporation, which is an affiliate program of the BRBC. I am truly grateful for Ed's expertise and knowledge, as without him, it would have been extremely difficult to assist the city of Bridgeport in the capacity that we were called upon to help the city review and ultimately help them distribute about $1 million of CARES Act funding for Bridgeport-based small and minority businesses. Ed was a true leader there. We've had many of conversations over the last several months trying to figure out the best way to get those dollars out into the community in partnership with the city of Bridgeport. I know his chairman, David Levine of Cohen and Wolf, and who also serves on the BRBC board. He has also been a tremendous resource to both of us, and in many ways a sounding board for both Ed and I this past year. So I thank him and Ed both for their leadership. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge the countless volunteers that really make this organization tick. They work tirelessly across the organization, keeping the business community connected and informed in our respective regions. And starting with Mike Powers, who's our chair of the Bridgeport Chamber of Commerce and also represents All American Waste. Nancy Kuhn from Newtown Savings Bank and chair of our Trumbull Chamber of Commerce. Patty Gallagher from Milford Savings Bank and chair of our Stratford Chamber of Commerce. And of course, our committees. We've got two really great committees that are pretty active right now. Al Carbone of UI is co-chairing with Greg Dancho of the Beardsley Zoo, our Government Relations Committee. It's been an interesting session, and there's some more information related to their activities that we'll be announcing later or earlier next week in terms of a wrap-up session. So keep an eye on that. And Paul Antonazzi of Antonazzi and Associates, he chairs our Economic Development Committee, and that committee has partnered with our Council of Governments, MetroCog, as many of us refer it to, and helping them in the city update the comprehensive economic development strategy for our 6-town region. So thank you, Paul, for your leadership on that committee and the folks working on that SEDS project. And speaking of economic development, I must also thank the economic and community development offices of our regional communities, especially Tom Gill, City of Bridgeport, Mary Dean, Town of Trumbull, Rena Bacalar with the Town of Trumbull, Mary Dean of Town of Stratford, I apologize. Mark Barnhart with the Town of Fairfield, and Bill Giovanni and Bill Holsworth with the Town of Monroe. When this pandemic started, the BRBC convened those groups of individuals that I mentioned with a regular call to collaborate and share ideas and policies and programs to help support businesses, because everyone was kind of in a state of triage, right? So we wanted to identify ways that we can help support them. And I just thank them for sharing their knowledge and expertise, being open to share great ideas, and really, in the end, help the business community at large within their respective communities. And that's what we do at the Business Council. We convene great minds and leaders of our region to solve business-related problems on behalf of our partners, all of you that are on this call today. And a special thanks to Mayor Joe Ganim and Bridgeport, Mayor Loya Hoydick of Stratford, and First Selectman Vicky Tesoro, and their respective health departments, emergency response teams, and all the folks that really have done and gone above and beyond in supporting the business community this past year plus. And we're also able to do all of this because of a very special and active and engaged board of members board of directors at the BRBC level, of which I'd like to especially thank Peg Sheehan of Mitchell and Sheehan. She's been an active board member for quite some time and served on several committees. I've got her actively working now on a bylaw revision for us to keep us up to speed and up to date with the changing times of how businesses are being done. Eric Henlin of PKF O'Connor Davies, our treasurer. Our immediate past chair, Kate Hanford Donahue of Hanford Research in Stratford. Our vice chair, Larry Ganem of Ganem Financial. And of course, our current chairman of the board, who I'll introduce in a moment, Pat McDonald of UI Holdings Company. So today's program is a very important one, especially for me. It's important to businesses, but more specifically and significantly, it's important to our regional economy. I strongly believe that workforce development is one of the keys to unlocking a return to growth and job creation for the greater Bridgeport region. When the pandemic first hit us, as I mentioned, we all kind of went into a bit of a triage mode. But quickly, the conversation evolved from conversations that I've had and hearing from many of you on this call about all the programs that exist to help get our displaced workforce back into the workforce, to upskill, reskill, and simply provide the basic needs to further support our ever-changing workforce needs in the region. So for me, when the governor announced the strategic plan in October to address our workforce needs through the Governor's Workforce Council, it made sense for the Business Council and our chambers to really step forward and as the region's leading business organization to convene industry along with our supporting partners, who I'll mention in a moment, to start a dialogue around workforce development. In fact, the timing of that announcement couldn't be any better because we were already starting to plan under Kate's guidance and leadership, Kate Pipa, a three-part series around workforce development. So it just kind of fit in perfectly to culminate into this session today, which is our third installment of a series that we've had talking about workforce development. So a special thank you to the Fairfield Community Foundation and Bank of America for their support and guidance and leadership in helping us craft these conversations over the course of these last three sessions. Our first session was with Connecticut DECD's Executive Director, Kelly Valeries, and we focused on career pathways. The second session was focused on career exploration and readiness, specifically focusing on the K through 12 sector, and led by Executive Director of Ready Connecticut, Shannon Merriman. And leading up to today's discussion on a broader topic of workforce development and specific industry impact. If you noticed, our wonderful panelists today come from a very diverse group of manufacturers, and maybe in some cases you wouldn't even think of. But some have asked, why are we focusing so much on manufacturing? And I'm sure our keynote, Colin Cooper, who's Connecticut's first Chief Manufacturing Officer, he'll go over this in more detail. But as we look at the greater Bridgeport labor market, you can predict that healthcare leads the way. But as you dig deeper into the segments of our employment market, you will see that manufacturing employs a significant number of people here in greater Bridgeport. Even when you take out the employers like Sikorsky, we're still looking at a labor market of over 20,000 people. That's significant. If you dig even deeper, you will see how diverse our manufacturers are. The days of dark and dingy and dangerous, they're going away or have gone away, and the industry as a whole is changing. So what better segment to convene a group of people, a group of manufacturers, the region's best, with our support partners, including the schools and community colleges and universities and programs like Connect Us, which we'll hear from Pam Lewis on the panel. But there's several of these type of programs. So how do we bring them all together? So you'll hear the term regional sector partnerships mentioned a few times today and throughout our program. And what better time than now to let the cat out of the bag? I've been dropping seeds over the last several months, formally announcing that the BRBC, along with our convening partners, MetroCog, our Council of Governments, are convening in the manufacturing industry and launching the Southwest District's Regional Sector Partnership later this month on June 29th. So what does that mean? It means we will be hosting dozens of area manufacturers and placing them at the center of this conversation. And with our supporting partners like the universities, again, and Housatonic Community College, Fairfield, Sacred Heart, and University of Bridgeport, and programs again like Connect Us and the many others that exist. We'll begin this journey to identify challenges and opportunities our area manufacturers are experiencing and coming up with creative solutions to address their workforce needs and ultimately recharge our economy. And that's an important point. This is not just a workforce development discussion. Ultimately, from my perspective, it very much is an economic conversation, an economic discussion. Our success with this partnership will mean not only job retention and growth, but raising the competitive edge of Greater Bridgeport as a place where not only businesses, but people want to work and want to live. So I'll stop there. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome our chairman of the board, Pat McDonald, who's VP of Connecticut's Regulatory Affairs for UIL Holding Company. Pat, how you doing? And welcome to the conversation this morning.
Great. Thanks, Dan. Welcome, everybody, to the BRBC annual meeting. This is my second annual meeting as BRBC chairman of the board, and it's our second annual meeting that we've had to do virtually. Certainly not the packed ballroom at one of the local hotels that we all had become accustomed to, but it is what it is, and we'll have to just deal with it. It's been a tough 15 months for all of us, personally, professionally, and the BRBC has not escaped that effect from the pandemic. So I want to thank Dan and all the staff at the BRBC for their flexibility and perseverance through this whole time. It's not been easy for them. They didn't sign up for this, but they've muddled through and persevered. So thank you to the staff of the BRBC. And then I'd also like to thank all the supporters of the BRBC in these strange times. We know it's not been easy for all of you either, and it certainly wasn't easy for you to be here today virtually. And I see all the different names in the chat, many of which I know, and I miss you folks dearly and look forward to being able to see you and shake your hands. And many that I don't know that I look forward to being able to meet someday in the near future. We're starting to see things change. The vaccine seems to be having an effect. And I think that we're going to be able to get back to something that looks a little bit more like normal. It probably won't be the same as it used to be, but whatever it is, we hope that the BRBC can count on your continued support and collaboration going forward. And with that, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker today. Is Colin Cooper. He's the Chief Manufacturing Officer for the state of Connecticut. And Colin said I could shorten up his bio, so I'm going to pick a couple of very important things I think I want to share with you and then let Colin start talking. First, he's a mechanical engineer, just like I am, which I think that's a great thing. He's headed a successful manufacturer for over 20 years. And clearly, I can see why the governor of Connecticut selected Colin to be the Chief Manufacturing Officer for the state. So very well qualified. Looking forward to hearing Colin. And without further ado, thank you, everybody, the BRBC community. And Colin, the floor is all yours.
Great. Well, thank you very much, and thanks everyone for having me. What an active group this is. It's great to see in these days of sort of Zoom fatigue that we have well over 100 participants in this. So I think that's fantastic. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about manufacturing and workforce development. If we go to the first slide, please. So just a quick overview. I want to talk about the importance of manufacturing for Connecticut. For those of us in manufacturing, this is a little bit of motherhood and apple pie. But for those of you not in manufacturing, hopefully you'll get a sense of how vital an industry it is in Connecticut. Talk a little bit about the Connecticut's manufacturing landscape. Talk some about emerging industries. I'm going to talk about one in particular, offshore wind, which should be something that folks in your region are really paying attention to, and what's going on and going to be going on in Bridgeport. And I know we have Juliemar Ortiz from Vineyard Wind today, and I'm sure she'll have some insights on that. I want to talk about Connecticut's commitment to manufacturing. And then really our support around workforce development, which I know is sort of one of the tenets of this series of webinars that you're having. So if we could go to the first slide, please. Thank you. First and foremost, want to talk about the importance of manufacturing for Connecticut. We produce a tremendous amount of products. We have world-leading manufacturers in the state, and we export our products worldwide. We have roughly 160,000 people throughout the state employed directly by Connecticut manufacturers, and manufacturing has one of the highest multipliers in terms of other jobs that it supports. You see studies anywhere from 2 to 7. Most estimate 3 to 4 jobs that each manufacturing job supports. I think it's important that these are good jobs. Wages are significantly above average in manufacturing, and it also, I'd add that these are really career opportunities. Manufacturing provides folks not just good jobs, but career opportunities, and it provides career opportunities for our citizens with a wide variety of different educational backgrounds, all the way from high school graduates to PhDs. If we could go to the next slide. Just a little bit about sort of the landscape. Again, we talked about 160,000 people employed in manufacturing in the state. May surprise people. We have 4,000 manufacturers across Connecticut. So, if you do the math, the average size is about 40 employees per firm. But when you look a little deeper, our largest manufacturers, 25 largest in the state, employ 60,000 people. Those would be manufacturers like Sikorsky or Pratt & Whitney Electric Boat. So when you look at the remaining 100,000 employees are spread across 4,000 manufacturers. So now you get to the average size of about 25. And if you look at the median size, it's probably under 20. So as we say, manufacturing is a mile wide and an inch deep, but these are really nimble businesses that are focused on a niche by and large and are really good at what they do. But it really underlies the fact that the health of the small and mid-sized manufacturers is really key to the health of the manufacturing ecosystem in the state. If we go to the next slide, please. So, just a little bit of background. Connecticut has really been at the forefront of precision manufacturing in the U.S. since the dawn of the Industrial Revolution in North America over 200 years ago. I mean, the Connecticut River Valley is really where it got going here. We have a strong history of innovation in the state, both in terms of product innovation as well as process innovations. We tend, if you're going to generalize, I would say we tend to be really strong in high complexity, lower volume products. Think, jet engines, helicopters, submarines. I mean, how can you get much higher complexity and lower volume in submarines? But we also produce. I think we have the largest razor blade factory in North America here in Connecticut, Edgewell, the Schick facility. And we also make all the Kleenex for the East Coast in Northwest Connecticut. So things that people don't associate with Connecticut manufacturing. We're also very strong in things like medical devices, advanced production system, engineered components, and automotive is actually one of our top 10 industry sectors in manufacturing, which I think is a surprise to a lot of folks, a lot of suppliers into that industry. And really, this is a theme I keep repeating. We in Connecticut, we compete based on the skills, knowledge, and ability of our workforce. We have a highly educated, highly skilled, highly productive workforce, and that's what we compete on. And that's why efforts like you all in terms of showcasing around workforce development are so key, because that's where it is. That's where it's at for Connecticut. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. If we could go to the next slide, please. So I want to touch on some emerging industries. There's a plethora of really interesting emerging industries and businesses coming to life in Connecticut. Just touching on some of them, some really interesting things going in and around batteries, both for automotive use as well as storage, as we move towards more renewable energies. Energy storage is going to become very, very important. Fuel cells, we lead the world at fuel cells. Not only is this a potential avenue for really clean energy as we move towards powering them off of hydrogen, but also fuel cells can play a critical role in energy storage. Biofuels, we have the largest biofuel facility in New England. It's here in southern Connecticut. And we have two of the country's leading electric vehicle charging station businesses here in Connecticut. And we have a very innovative drone company headquartered in Hartford. They not only are headquartered there, they're actually manufacturing in Hartford. Very innovative processes they're using to make these drones. And of course, we have offshore wind power. And if we can go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit more about this because this is so critical. I don't think people understand the magnitude of the economic opportunity that's coming at us, and it's coming at us fast. So if you look worldwide, there's about 36 gigawatts of offshore wind power installed across the world, predominantly in Western Europe, lot in the North Sea. It's forecast that there will be over 200 gigawatts of offshore wind power installed worldwide by 2030. So that's 6x in the next 10 years, the install base. So it's a compound annual growth rate of almost 20%. There aren't many industries around the world of this scale that are growing that rapidly. In fact, I really can't think. It would be tough to identify one that's going to grow at that rate over that sustained period of time. Here, close at home in the U.S., as of last year and even the beginning of this year, we had less than 1 gigawatt of offshore wind power installed, and our target is to have 30 gigawatts of offshore wind power installed by the end of this decade. So coming close to duplicating the world capacity that we will duplicate the capacity that Europe took 30 years to build. We'll do that in 10 years. And this isn't just sort of pipe dream. These are projects that are in motion now. We can go to the next slide. So again, and I think what's important is not only is this being installed in the U.S., but it's being done off of the Northeast coast and the Mid-Atlantic coast of the U.S. And we're sort of right in Connecticut. We're right in the middle of all of that. We're sort of the epicenter of this activity. This is a great region for offshore wind. Because there's such a huge market for power along the eastern seaboard. B is we have one of the best wind profiles anywhere on the earth, on the northeast, off the northeast coast. And then you couple that with a very shallow shelf going out. So those attributes make this ideal for the development of offshore wind power. So if you look at what's in development now, you're talking about $12 billion of annual capex per year over the next 10 years. And this activity is estimated to support up to 80,000 new jobs. And again, most of those new jobs are going to be near where this activity is taking place, Northeast U.S. and Mid-Atlantic region. And just to one more sort of point around the economics is, of the 30 plus offshore wind projects that are in the planning stage, that represents $87.5 billion worth of capex and almost $3 billion a year of operating expense. So I think the headline number folks focus on the capex, the investment. Perhaps just as interesting is the operating expense, because these wind farms run for 25, 30 years. And so there's a really long tail on these projects. And I think there's going to be a whole set of businesses built around servicing the needs of these installations. We can go to the next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about the Connecticut's commitment to manufacturing. I'll talk about some of the assets in place, and I'll talk about some of the programs, and I'll talk about some of the new sort of strategic focus. In terms of assets in place, we have 9 advanced manufacturing training centers around the state. You'll see, I think I've got in a couple slides a map of the state. You can't be in Connecticut and be more than 20 miles from an advanced manufacturing training center. And I think that is a real asset that we have. Upstate, we've got the Yukon Tech Park, which is just a fabulous facility, really focused on applied research, and then really focused on linking that with industry partnerships and commercializing that activity. We've got the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology in East Hartford. For any of you manufacturers that haven't been to their Advanced Technology Center, I recommend you go. There's a tremendous amount of new technology available there for demonstration. We have the Connecticut Manufacturing Innovation Fund. This is something that was really insightful when they developed it about 2014. It's a $20 million fund. And it's really, it's focused around workforce and helping companies grow. And I'll talk about that more in a slide. We have the creation of the Connecticut Manufacturers Collaborative, which I think was a very innovative development. It really is an umbrella group over our top 10 or so manufacturing groups in the state, which really acts as a clearinghouse for ideas and allows manufacturing to speak to our legislators with one voice, and really helps sort of sift through the funnel and understand what the true priorities are across the state to support manufacturing. The creation of the position I hold, we're the only state in the country that has that position. And again, I think speaks to our commitment to manufacturing. And then, as you all know, the creation of the Governor's Workforce Council and the resultant Workforce Strategic Plan. I think Dan talked on it earlier. This is not just a workforce development plan. This is, I believe, the most important economic development plan we have available in the state. Nationally, there are going to have to be over 4.5 million manufacturing jobs filled in the next 10 years. Estimates are that as many as half of those might go unfilled for lack of skilled candidates. So if we implement the initiatives in our workforce strategic plan, that is going to give us a real competitive advantage in terms of training people to enter the manufacturing workforce, and is going to really put us in a really strong competitive position versus other states and other regions. And then, of course, the creation and staffing of the Office of Workforce Strategy, which is really charged. That's Kelly's group. You all met Kelly. She's wonderful, the right person for the job. And that group is really charged with implementing this workforce strategic plan. And you all play a role in that. And we'll talk about that in a little bit through these regional sector partnerships. We can go to the next slide, please. So, back to the, I just want to do a little deeper dive on the Manufacturing Innovation Fund. We've assisted over 2,000 manufacturers throughout the state, created or retained. And these are numbers as of last June, which is the end of the fiscal year. So we're coming up to the end of the 21 fiscal year. So we're over 18,000 jobs created or retained, over 25,000 workers trained or retrained, and over 18,000 students engaged across virtually every town and city in our state. I think what's important about this, we look at the funds going into the MIF as catalyst capital. We don't want to underwrite things. We want state funds to be used as a catalyst to help employers do the things they need to do to help their workforces and to advance their businesses. And it's important when you look across the MIF programs, every dollar of state funds has been matched by, we're getting close to $2 of private and third-party funding. So it's working as intended. And again, the focus here is around workforce. We've got apprenticeship programs, incumbent worker training, got a program called College Connections, which is giving students at comprehensive high schools the opportunity to get manufacturing training. We have programs to help companies go, matching grant programs around capital expenditure, around technology adoption, and we have a number of outreach programs. We have one program for manufacturers focused on energy efficiency, helping our manufacturers, lower their aggregate energy costs, which is a big headwind issue for every manufacturer. If we go to the next slide, please. So this is a slide, and I apologize. I think all of you are probably familiar with what Connecticut looks like. You can see Long Island there. You can't really see the outlines of the state very well here in this map, but I think you get the sense that we've got the state pretty well blanketed with advanced manufacturing centers around the state. And of note, there'll be an announcement on it the next 2 weeks. You'll hear more about it. There's been a $7.5 million federal grant awarded to the state that's going to Tungsten Community College for an advanced manufacturing technology center. And again, more on that later, but it's very exciting news. So we've got some real assets in place here. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'd like to turn to to workforce. Again, we have a highly educated, skilled, and productive workforce here in the state. We compete based on the skills, knowledge, and ability. So if you focus on workforce development, I always say you're never focused on the wrong thing if you're focused on workforce development. I think I think Kelly may have taken you through this. This is the overview of the strategic plan. Components include business leadership. As Dan talked about, business is at the center of these regional sector partnerships. It's all about businesses, and then you have the service providers outside of businesses, but it's business driven. There's a focus on career education, and this really is an effort to coordinate and connect these programs and make sure that they're stackable, that they're building on each other, and that they're focused to meet the needs of what employers need. Equity and access. This is statewide, nationwide, worldwide. There's a war for talent. That's certainly how we compete here in Connecticut. Is on the talent of our workforce. Activities, initiatives around equity and access, I would say, they are the right thing to do from a social perspective, but they are absolutely critical from an economic perspective. This is an economic imperative. We need to make sure that we are continually identifying sources of talent and that we're giving that talent the opportunity to get trained into the workforce. And if we can do that, that again will give us a long-term competitive advantage. And then you have one of the tenets here on data and accountability. And I think anybody who's been in manufacturing and probably any other business, there's certainly a saying in manufacturing that says, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And the state systems in terms of measuring outcomes are wanting. So the gaps have been identified, and there are a number of initiatives that have been identified to help address those gaps so that we can really get good data and understand what's working and what's not working, and get it all in through an integrated data system. If we can go to the next slide, please. So here, here we've got a map of Connecticut in sort of 5 regions, and this is really showing where we have regional sector partnerships. And you'll note that 4 out of these 5 regions have identified, are really working on implementing manufacturing regional sector partnerships. Actually, all 5 of them have identified that as an area of focus. The north central area has got it sort of lower because they already have sort of a more developed ecosystem around this and some well-functioning constructs there. But you know, it's very exciting. Again, it speaks to, you know, Connecticut's commitment to manufacturing. I think it speaks to people have identified the importance of manufacturing, not just manufacturing in and of itself, but the support that it provides the rest of our economy, and then also the opportunities that manufacturing presents to all of our state citizens. Again, from high school graduates up through PhDs. And I see we've got you in there for a June launch. And as I heard, it sounds like it's going to be late this month that you all are going to be launching regional sector partnership around manufacturing. So any of the manufacturers on this call, I would encourage you to get engaged. I don't think it's going to be too heavy a lift for our manufacturers, but I think the payoff could be immense. And it's really important, again, that we have businesses at the center of this activity. And so if we go to the last slide, so again, you know, just leading the way in terms of our support for advanced manufacturing, really innovative stuff we're doing on workforce development across the state, and support for emerging industries. So thank you for your time and attention. And I will turn it back to, I don't know, it's Pat or Dan, but I'm certainly available for some questions.
Here I am, Colin. Yeah, so we're coming up on kind of the allotted time here, but I did have one question that came in, and I had a similar question, so they're somewhat related. So we'll ask you this one question, and we'll leave you off the hook. But just as a reminder to the audience, if there are any specific questions you have for Colin, please enter them in the Q&A. We will circle back around and getting answers to those questions. But the question I had, and you touched upon it a little bit, and this has come up in a few of the conversations I've had with some manufacturers, is around the revamping of the apprenticeship program. And kind of as a follow-up to that, the incentive side, this came in through the chat. What incentives are employers or manufacturers have related to hiring students from like the technical schools? I know that's a big piece of this puzzle as we talk about workforce development. So a little bit of a two-part question there for you, and then I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, first off, I don't think we need a lot of incentives to hire students in manufacturing from our technical high schools. I think they're oversubscribed. I think people understand how strong our manufacturing programs are in the technical high schools. And so we've actually got employers from other states coming in trying to hire our graduates from technical high school. So it's a strong market for them. There is support then. Obviously, somebody isn't going to come in and be a fully matured, skilled tool maker coming out of technical high school. So there is support for apprenticeship through the Manufacturing Innovation Fund. We've got an apprenticeship program which provides support. It provides a fairly significant wage stipend plus money for training, third-party training, as well as credentialing. Now that program has the MIF, when I sort of joined the state, was running low on funding. It looks like in this budget that's getting passed today, that we're going to have $20 million going into the MIF, $10 million over each of the next 2 fiscal years. Fiscal 22 starts in July. I hope to be on the first docket on the first bond committee meeting, so we can get that access to that fund. And one of the programs that we really need to get financial support into is the apprenticeship program through the MIF. But I will tell you that a fellow by the name of Todd Birch, if a manufacturer doesn't know him, they should know him. He's the Johnny Appleseed of apprenticeship in Connecticut, and he can provide people sort of the chapter and verse how to access that funding that's available to manufacturers who are looking to put apprenticeship programs in place.
Excellent. Thank you, Colin. And just as a note to build upon that, and Sarah made mention here in the chat, as well as Kathy Saint, that the workplace, who's a great supporter of the BRBC, the region, and ultimately the sector partnership that we're working on now, they're going to be one of our supporting partners. They offer grant dollars for apprenticeships, and I know the Department of Labor is on this call as well, and they've been very active around this conversation as well, related to apprenticeships and beyond, the sector partnership stuff that we'll be talking more about. So thanks, Colin. I appreciate your time this afternoon, I should say. With that, if there are any questions again for Colin, just enter them in the Q&A and we'll circle back around for you, okay?
Great,
Thanks
thank
again,
you.
Colin. I appreciate your time. And I think you're going to be sticking on for a little bit just for
Yep.
the intro here of the panels. Great. So Bill Tommins, welcome. Good morning, or actually good afternoon now. So Bill Tommins, he is, let me pull this up here just to get this right. So Bill Tommins is the president of Bank of America Southern Connecticut Market Executive, Northeast Region Global Commercial Banking with Bank of America again. And Bank of America, I got to tell you, since we started this dialogue around workforce development, they have been very active, even in the early parts of the pandemic. I had conversations with Carol Heller, and they were right out of the gate. And I think they've been working on this for a long time with their commitment to workforce development. But she had reached out and said, hey, we would love to do what we can to support businesses around this conversation. So with that, I just welcome Bill Tommins. He also was a board member of the BRBC. We thank you for his leadership over the years, and of course, Bank of America's partnership with the BRBC and the business community as a whole. So Bill, I think you're going to be introducing the panelists in a moment, but we'd love to hear a few comments from you as well. Thank you,
Dan, and thanks for the kind introduction. Bank of America has been really excited to be the sponsor of this series, and I'm very excited to participate today. I've known Colin professionally for a long time. I knew he'd be a great keynote speaker, and the subject matter of workforce development and job creation is a key focus of our company right now. Over the past 5 years, Bank of America announced a over the past year, Bank of America announced a $1.25 billion commitment over 5 years to advance racial equality and economic opportunity, which is really building on our long-term focus of strengthening communities. This effort really accelerates work that was already underway to address racial equality and economic opportunity through some of the direct actions we've made, investments and work to catalyze efforts like this across the private sector. I've had the opportunity personally to talk with our CEO, Brian Moynihan, many times over the past 18 months about the role business needs to play in creating an ecosystem to enable more people, particularly those coming from low to moderate income communities, to secure career jobs with upside potential. Brian has led highly successful workforce collaborations in Boston, in Providence, and Charlotte that mobilizes business leaders who have jobs to fill. They inventory the skills that are needed to secure those jobs, and then work with our partners in the nonprofit, vocational, and community college systems to train those individuals to be successful. But in our view, for these programs to work, businesses must take the lead. We can guarantee the success of job training programs because we can make the hiring commitments, and we have the financial resources to sustain this work over years. So that's why I'm really excited to be part of today's program and joined by a great panel that I will introduce in a moment. But before I introduce the panel, I just did want to touch on some of the work that Bank of America is involved in locally in workforce development. This work, as Dan mentioned, is not new to us. We've been proud to partner for many years with Housatonic Community College. We were the first investor in their advanced manufacturers training program, with career resources and many other organizations focused on youth leadership and employment, such as the Bridgeport Mayor's Summer Jobs Program, our Student Leader Program here at the bank, and the partnerships that we have with organizations like the Cardinal Sheehan Center and RISAP. But over the past year during the pandemic, we were especially pleased to work with social venture partners, Housatonic Community College, Career Resources, and Yale New Haven Health System to launch an innovative job reskilling program which connected displaced hospitality workers to promising careers in high demand fields in healthcare. In a fast track pilot program, we started with a cohort of 30 students, primarily women of color, that were chosen by Career Resources. Those individuals received free training at HCC and Norwalk Community College, and they were targeted to become certified nursing aides and sterile processing technicians, fields which the demand for workers is very high right now. Their classroom work was done online. They had hands-on training in labs. They had clinical rotations in the hospitals. And after training, 90% of those students became certified and started employment. Further, we tapped CARES Act funding and Bank of America's further investment to take this program statewide. So additional 180 workers were hired to fill gaps in these high demand healthcare jobs. So, you know, we besides funding the program, Bank of America's role was really serving as a connector to get employers to the table, particularly the hospitals. So I think these programs are just the starting point for some of the long-term skills-based training and partnerships that you're hearing about with the Governor's Workforce Council. And so we're very focused on building an equitable, inclusive, and innovative workforce for our region. So with that as some background, I'm going to ask all the panelists to come back on. I'm going to ask Colin maybe to jump on again, if he wouldn't mind, and maybe address the first question to Colin, if he is able to join. There you are. Welcome back, Colin. So Colin, known you for a long time. You're the state's first manufacturing czar. This is a role that you mentioned no other state has. How do you really see your role representing the manufacturing sector, and where are you spending your time right now?
Wow. Look, I'm the person who works in state government, who comes in every day to work trying to advance the cause of manufacturing in Connecticut. I mean, that's sort of the essence of it. And a lot of my efforts over the last year, I mean, all of us were consumed with the pandemic. So there was a tremendous amount of activity going on around the pandemic, trying to develop and implement safe workplace procedures, because manufacturing, we didn't have the opportunity to work remotely. You need to be in situ to do the manufacturing. We put together some grant programs, help companies pivot to make critically needed medical equipment and supplies when we couldn't source them through our regular supply chains. And since the pandemic is over, we've really been focused. My conversations with manufacturers they're focused now, after spending a year and a half looking at risk that's 6 inches in front of their faces. Now they're looking at opportunities that are 6 months, 12 months, 18 months out, and helping them get the workforce that they need to realize those opportunities, access the capital that they need. As you know, capital is the lifeblood of manufacturing. It's a very capital intensive industry. We focused on addressing some regulation areas that have been headwinds for manufacturers. But a whole host of reasons, activities. A lot of what I do is work as a liaison. Individual companies will come to me with a specific issue. Maybe it's on exporting or whatnot. So a lot of it is connecting them with the right resources. There are tremendous resources throughout the state. And one of the frustrating things is, and one of the things we're trying to address, is for manufacturers to understand all those resources that are available to them out there. And that's one of the things I do, is connect them with those resources. So there's no shortages of ways to fill the day. There are 4,000 manufacturers, and there's one of me, so I sometimes feel like I'm a little outgunned. But we're fighting the good fight, and I think making progress on a lot of different fronts.
Well, Colin, I personally just wanted to thank you for being here today. We're clearly here to support your work, and please let us know how we can be helpful.
Great. Thank you. One of the assets we have in the state, what I didn't talk about, is we've got a lending community that understands and supports manufacturing. And again, that's absolutely key in this industry. So thank you for what you all are doing at B of A.
Appreciate it, Colin. Thanks again for joining. So we're going to turn to our panel. And our first panelist is Pam Lewis, who's the Executive Director of Connect Us. Pam has led her life really serving the after-school programs for urban youth throughout the country and in this region, really building off work she has done as a youth organizer and a political activist in New York City. She's had nationwide impact in engaging poverty through an innovative performance-based approach. And in 2019, I just want to make sure everybody is aware, Pam was honored, her organization and she were honored with a Light a Fire Award from Motley Media for community impact. I've known Pam a while. She is a powerhouse, and we're so thankful that she is here in our community helping the urban youth. So my question to you, Pam, is you've built hundreds of partnerships with business leaders, providing mentorship and training and internships. And so first, can you tell us a little bit about Connect Us, talk about your training model, and how you think about the need for soft skill training for readying our youth for their future employment?
Sure. Thank you so much, Bill, and hi, everyone. I just want to say that I'm so glad that we are having this conversation today, and it's just really good to be here. So Connect Us has 3 after-school development programs. Our Connect Us Youth Leadership Team, our Connect Us See You on Stage program, and the Connect Us Academy. And today I'm going to be speaking about the Connect Us Academy. We call it the CUA for short. So the Connect Us Academy is a program where young people partner with business professionals to learn how to create a professional performance. And I use the word performance on purpose because at Connect Us, we use a performance-based model in training our young people. We use a lot of improvisational, and we do a lot of playing to support the young people being able to take risks. So students learn how to perform in situations that are new and uncomfortable, and they learn how businesses work, how to speak in front of an audience, how to write a resume, and how to interview for a job, and so much more. And we recruit students from local high schools throughout Bridgeport. Students are accepted into the program based on their desire to grow and to be leaders. And anyone between the ages of 16 and 21 can join. So it's not about their grades, it's just about the young people's commitment to grow. So for 14 weeks, students attend weekly after-school workshops at companies throughout Fairfield County. And we currently have 24 corporate partners, and I'm looking to grow that number. Our partnerships include the Barnum Financial Group, Bridgeport Hospital, which we'll be hearing more from Martha Judd a little later, Bridgewater Associates, Diversa Partners, of course, Fairfield County's Community Foundation, Galt Family Companies, JP Morgan, People's Bank, Pullman and Comley, and of course, we have a growing and developing partnership with Bank of America and many more. Upon graduation from the program, students are placed in a 6-week paid summer internship with our partnering companies. And I just want to say that, you know, when I was first beginning this work, we'd go to the businesses and we'd say, you know, help us train our young people, give high school students a paid summer internship. Now, some of the companies initially said, well, that's not our culture. We don't take high school students. And so I boldly said to them, well, I want you to change your culture. So, of course, our partners said, okay. And what we told them is that we will train your people in how to work with young people, because we don't assume that you know how to do that. So we would train the supervisors in our performance-based approach. And I have to tell you that to the T, when at the end of the summer, the companies told us that our high school students did a better job than most of their college interns, because they were trained in our approach. So the work that we do at the Connect Us Academy is a great way to prepare young people to enter the workforce. and to pursue educational opportunities. And in this kind of world that we're living in with so much uncertainty, it supports them to face challenges that they're up against in new ways. So having business leaders from companies across Fairfield County partner with Connect Us allows different communities to come together. You know, there's so much talk about division in our country, and Connect Us is all about bringing people together who normally don't come together. So, you know, I want to just kind of speak about our performance-based approach. Last week, we graduated our fourth class of Connect Us Academy. And one of the things the students really like about what we do, and they tell us all the time, is the theater and performance work to help them learn these soft skills. So we use play and performance as a catalyst to learning and development, because play helps break down barriers. The language of performance provides a great framework for giving constructive feedback to our students. So I'm in the role of director, and I can ask our students to do a take 2 or a take 3. And as a director, I throw moralism and judgment out the window. It's like, okay, do you mind if I give you some direction? Like a director is giving direction to an actor in a play or in a movie. So performance framing gives us a way to talk about professional dressing, for example. When you relate to professional dress as a costume, we're not saying that this is the right way or this is the wrong way. We're saying that this is the costumes that's needed for this scene. So feedback that is framed with the language of performance is not moral or judgmental. It's creative and supportive. So I'll just wrap by saying that, you know, we're really counting on our young people to lead the way. And in order to create their lives, our young people need you. And so I'm just so glad that we're having this conversation together. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I'm a father of a big theater family here, so I clearly can connect with your.
Yeah, and I have to say, I'm a performer and singer myself, so.
I want to bring Martha Judd into the conversation. Martha's the Director of Government and Community Relations at Bridgeport Hospital and Yale New Haven Health System. And she's been a longtime partner of Connect Us and has hosted a number of the interns that have been trained through your program, Pam. And Martha, would you mind just talking a little bit from your perspective? What has the group from Connect Us demonstrated to you, and a little bit about the program once they're in-house at the hospital?
Be happy to. Thank you so much for this opportunity. We have partnered with Connect Us Academy for several years now. Of course, during COVID, everything has changed. We have sent speakers to speak to the class last year, and we'll probably do the same this year. But pre-COVID, we committed to hiring a Connect Us Academy student for the 6 weeks during the summer. And, you know, we have found the experience to be a win-win, both for us as well as for the student. You know, the young employees bring a different perspective to the hospital and to the workplace, a fresh set of eyes. And, you know, we do assist them with some mentorship and hopefully towards their career goals. But we get a lot out of it as well. And needless to say, they also help with our workload. So that's not a bad thing either. You know, Connect Us Academy makes it very easy to become involved, and as well as some of the other workforce organizations. Pam will be proud of me when I say the students are ready to perform, and you know, they come to the workplace excited to be there and well prepared. But prior to them arriving at the hospital, we do try to match them with a department that they are interested in, or at least, you know, have a passion for. And at the same time, we also try to match them with a supervisor who can further mentor them during those 6 weeks. And that's really, really important. But in addition to, working in the departments and being mentored by a supervisor, we also set up some other work shadow opportunities throughout the 6 weeks. And this allows them to look at other areas of the hospital. I mean, you stop and think about it, a hospital has just about any department you can think of here. So we also offer these work shadow opportunities so that they can explore other areas they may have not even considered to pursue. And I have to say, we've had a great success experience with Connect Us Academy. All the students that we've worked with have either gone on to college or have already gained successful employment. So I can't say enough good things about Connect Us Academy and the other workforce organizations, that we work with. It's a win-win experience. It's not only good for the student, but for the employer as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha, for those comments. And, I was incredibly impressed by the program as I learned more about it. I think particularly coming out of the pandemic, helping these high school kids with some of the, self-confidence and ability to stand up and speak in public and take a position and have more just general confidence in general, I think is a great path. I encourage all of the businesses on the call today to help expand Pam's roster of corporate partners and to get involved. And Martha, I just also wanted to thank you and Yale New Haven Health. You were a critical partner in the displaced hospitality training program that I spoke about earlier. And really without your efforts stepping forward, we would not have been as successful as we were.
Thank you.
So thank you. I'm going to move to our next panelist. I know Kathy's having a little technical difficulty. Looks like you're back. Wonderful. So our next panelist is Kathy Saint, the president of Schwerdtle here in Bridgeport. Welcome, Kathy. Kathy and her brother are fourth generation family members who work with many longtime coworkers in a very successful family business. The company manufactures tool and dies and fixtures for marking and decorating a wide range of materials, including plastics and leather and wood. And Schwerdtle has definitely demonstrated that advanced manufacturing is alive and well here in Bridgeport. The company has continued to grow and expand its facilities. So my question for you, Kathy, you've served on numerous boards in the manufacturing space, including at UConn and Housatonic. You've been involved in the technical training programs at the high schools. You've been a real advocate for skilled workforce training. So what's your assessment of the skill readiness of young adults right now entering the workforce? Where are there gaps and how can we do a better job of closing them?
If you start with the primary group that we look to, first off, it's the Connecticut Technical Education System. And the students coming out of those schools spend 50% of the time in the classroom than the students in the comprehensive schools. But those students end up doing just as well on all the comprehensive testing exams. They have a 98% graduation rate, and they're our #1 go-to. But those programs are much too small to meet the gap that we have right now. So we have to find ways, and I apologize for the background noise. It is a manufacturing company. So basically what we have to do is find ways to also connect the comprehensive schools with technical training. And one of the things that manufacturers, we always try and leverage every bit of infrastructure we've got. If we've got machines, we want them running as many shifts as possible. And one of the things that really bugged us for a lot of years was all this infrastructure build out with these tech centers, both in the technical schools and also in the advanced manufacturing centers at the community colleges that were really not being leveraged. And so with Kelly and the governor's workforce, we've been able to cut through a lot of the red tape that existed that prevented partnerships that could use state resources more effectively. So you're seeing these programs like College Connections, where students who are in Bassett High School, for example, would come out of the school and do technical training at, right now, Platt Tech in Milford, or at Housatonic Community College, or, oh no, I'm sorry, they're going to Bullard Havens, I believe. And so we're taking these resources that we have and we're really leveraging them. So I'm very, very excited about that. But we still have a problem with some of the students coming in out of the schools with not high level enough math skills. I still run into a mindset that has driven me crazy for 30 years now, where people think, well, if kids can't make it academically, then we'll send them to a tech school and they'll learn a trade. I'm sorry, but we're dealing every day with trigonometry and geometry and with all types of levels of math that we need our students to walk in the door and be prepared. And so they're coming up with different kinds of programs. The workplace just hired a math instructor that they're going to be using to upskill these kids so that they can get to the point where they can actually matriculate in these technical programs and really be able to succeed. So I think the game changers in the last couple of years have really been the Connecticut Manufacturers Collaborative, which brought the voices of all the associations in the state together. And through that, we approached the governor and said, we want a chief manufacturing officer and we want Colin Cooper, because we do not want a bureaucrat. We do not want a person who's just got political experience. We want somebody who has real manufacturing experience, but also has been involved in workforce and other issues for long enough that they're going to understand how to navigate the political side of it as well. Same thing with Kelly. Kelly was one of our members and came out of that to run the Governor's Workforce Council. And now we're starting to see that direct connection to the governor's office, to David Lehman, to key senators like Senator Hartley is an amazing supporter of workforce in the state and always has been a champion. We're starting to see people take action to break down the silos and get all these different state agencies and organizations to work better together. We've got a ways to go, but the conversation is happening and I see progress.
Kathy, that's great. Again, you've been such an advocate for this topic for so many years.
A long
I do
time.
have another question for you, but in the interest of making sure we get to all of our panelists, I'm going to hold it to the end. But again, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure.
We're also joined by Tom Quinn, who's the Executive Vice President of Nuovo Pasta based in Stratford. Tom has been with the company since 2004, basically their Chief Operating Officer. He's also Chairman for the National Pasta Association Government Affairs Committee and serves on other national committees. So Tom, you've been a local food manufacturer that's been growing, recently expanded into a supplemental facility in Stratford. What are Nuovo's specific needs for skilled and unskilled workers, and how are you seeing that need evolve in the future?
Well, Bill, thanks for including me in this, and it's a pleasure to be on the panel, all you folks. It's been a very interesting last year and a half, to say the least, and business, especially in manufacturing. We were talking about offline earlier, and you had mentioned that manufacturers had to stay at the helm to keep, whether it was the food or the equipment or the machinery, whatever it is that kept the economy, moving, had to keep going. So there were a number of challenges with the current workforce. But as the workforce continues to grow and our needs continue to grow, it's been a real mix. Certainly in our world, skilled labor, like people that can operate machinery, I think is a very, very important thing and a skill, along with, moderately skilled people that can grow into those roles. It's been very interesting to look at the workforce as it's been available, or even more to the fact, not available to a certain extent. I know, one of the things we have talked about is that labor pool that's out there right now. There's such a competitive landscape for it that it's not just within the realm of food or manufacturing or shipping or handling or all those things that go in industry. It really is that one pool of people that everybody's trying to vie for. And as the economy comes back in Southern Connecticut and throughout the state, I only know Southern Connecticut part of it, but as all those people are vying to bring in people, it's really created, at least at the manufactural level, a shortage of folks to talk to. It used to be you'd have 4 or 5, 6 people coming in for a machinist or operator's position, and now you're out there searching to get 1 or 2 to talk to that you have to kind of pull into the front door as they're walking by. And I think as we progress forward, and all these folks, from the council and everybody else get together, and the government's and the governor's workforce task force and all, I think having a more centralized location that can bring not just the new folks from the schools coming in, which is critically important, but also those displaced, because not every industry has grown at the same rate and been able to make the transition, and get some of those folks into that same pool too. And I know it's a lot of effort on a lot of people's part, but it's a constant challenge to be able to connect the ground level work opportunities with really good folks that I think would be good fill for that. So I think as we progress forward, part of it's technology, part of it's things like this with the regional councils and the governor's group, but to get a place where manufacturers can go and say, listen, I need not just a machinist, but I need somebody that can fill boxes with things, which usually what they let me do. They don't let me go near machines, but as a guy with a title, I'm only allowed to put things in boxes. That's the limit of what they let me touch. But I think having that as we continue to grow and evolve this whole system, a focus on that type of thing, I think will be a critical help to manufacturers all over the state to connect the folks that are out there actively looking to find a home and a long-term career with the people that have those opportunities.
Thank you, Tom. I also have another question for you, but again, in the interest of getting to Juliemar, I'm going to hold it and come back to you on this one. So our next panelist is Juliemar Ortiz, who is the Government and Community Liaison for Vineyard Wind. This is one of those exciting offshore wind projects that Colin had talked about. I hadn't read too much about Vineyard Wind, but it was incredible as I dug in and learned more. So Juliemar is leading Vineyard Wind's community outreach in Connecticut. She recently served as press secretary to Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysewicz and the press aide to the Connecticut State Democratic Caucus. So my question for you, Juliemar, is the Vineyard Wind's Park City Wind Project. You've signed now a lease for your headquarters in Bridgeport and your operations and maintenance and staging area for your offshore project that you'll be supporting in Massachusetts. Can you talk a little bit about the jobs that are going to be created in the region?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I love these conversations. I know Sandeep is on the call and he asked about technical schools, and he was part of the education panel. So we got to connect and talk about how to get students from Fuller Havens into offshore wind. So thanks again for hosting this discussion. When we talk about the work for Park City Wind, it's really about establishing Bridgeport as a hub for offshore wind in the region. There really are only a handful of ports that can service the offshore wind industry right now. And so Bridgeport will be used not just by Connecticut, but by other states in New England that will be looking to purchase and build offshore wind. The Connecticut project will provide about 14% of Connecticut's power. It's going to provide rate savings through ratepayer savings as well. But the really exciting part about it is the economic development initiatives. And so we're going to be investing $890 million in workforce and education training, as well as building the supply chain for businesses that can service the industry as well. And with the supply chain being built, more jobs will be created through those contracts. So when you talk about an offshore wind turbine, the main components are, you know, the turbine and the electrical service platform. There's all these different pieces. In Bridgeport specifically, we're going to be staging the transition piece of the turbine. It's what connects the bottom that's in the water to the piece that's above the water that connects to the blades. And so when it's about the size of a 3-story building, each of these pieces, we're going to be redeveloping Barnum Landing. So a bulk of the jobs that will be created for Park City Wind specifically is going to be in construction and redeveloping that site. But there are new unique type jobs that will be created by the offshore wind industry. One of those being the operations and maintenance, the offshore wind technicians. And so after the staging of the transition pieces is over, it'll take about 2 years to get them all staged and out into the water. And by the way, these turbines won't be seen from Connecticut. They're the lease areas that were designated by the federal government are off the coast of Massachusetts in the Nantucket Sound. You won't be able to see them from Connecticut, but you will be able to see them from Massachusetts. They'll look like they're very far away, but you're more than welcome to take a boat out there one day. So the operations and maintenance facility will then be built at a portion of Barnum Landing. And so they're going to be workers for the 25+ year life of the project going in and out of Bridgeport to service the offshore wind turbines. The special thing about these jobs is that the offshore wind technician jobs is they are unique in that the offshore wind technician stays out on the boat on site for 2 weeks and they come back. So when it comes to recruiting and creating programming to train the workforce, we're committed to partnering with Career Resources in Bridgeport. We've signed letters of intent to work with the University of Bridgeport, which is now being acquired by Goodwin, which we're really excited about because Goodwin has an amazing program, a very diverse program. And that's really a priority for us, is to create an energy workforce that looks like our country, that looks like Bridgeport. And so we're going to be focusing on hiring underserved community, formerly incarcerated individuals, veterans, women, people who may not think that this industry is for them. It really is. And, you know, no one's trained right now in offshore wind. This has been happening in Europe for the last 20 years, but when it comes to the US, this is really the first opportunity. And Vineyard Wind, I don't know if you guys saw the news that the Biden administration, I think it was last month or maybe in April, released the final approval for Vineyard Wind 1, which will be the first project in the nation. And my company, Vineyard Wind, is building that project for the state of Massachusetts. The good news about that is that Park City Wind is literally being built in the same parcel. So we think that that'll, you know, help us move along the permitting process pretty quickly. And so like I said, we're going to be working with UB as well as the CSDU system to implement offshore wind training in Housatonic Community College. They already have a great advanced manufacturing program. And we're also going to be working with the Connecticut Center for Advanced Technology to build the offshore wind supply chain database and to host Meet the Buyer events so that companies who are interested in learning more about serving the offshore wind industry can. And an interesting, really good initiative that we have as part of this program is that we're going to be providing funding for companies, maybe if they need to hire more people or they need to buy certain equipment to be able to build the technology that we need. There are funds available for that, and we're working with DEEP as well as DECD to plan out those funds. We're going to be working with building pathways. We are looking forward to negotiating a project labor agreement with the Fairfield County Building Trades. And so building pathways will help us get people from Bridgeport, from the region into the union, so that when we're ready to do construction in 2024, 25, late 23, we'll have the workforce ready. There's a lot more to say, but that kind of is the gist of the whole thing. And just as like in terms of job numbers, we're looking to create about 2,800 job years over the 25-year life of the project, and 1 year is equivalent to, you know, one person for a year. So because we haven't chosen all the components of the turbines, the job numbers, you know, may change a little bit, but, you know, we know for sure that, you know, the amount of work that will go on to the project. So we're excited that we're almost done with construction in our downtown office. And I know Marcus Brown, our workforce and local content coordinator, has already been there working. I'm looking forward to being there tomorrow for the first time. So we'll have an official ribbon cutting and hope to have, everyone visit when things get a little safer.
Wonderful. So Juliemar, we heard Colin's remarks about CapEx and OpEx, and it sounds like, you know, there's a real OpEx opportunity here for many, many years to help support the projects that you have. Before I thank the panel and turn it back over to Dan, Juliemar, could you maybe give us 1, 2, or 3 words as to why you chose Bridgeport?
I'm from Bridgeport. Me personally, or Vineyard Wind?
I'm thinking maybe the company.
So Bridgeport, the really exciting thing about Bridgeport is that we are we have one of few ports that can service the offshore wind industry. Although our name is Bridgeport, there is actually no bridges that prohibit large vessels from coming in and out of there. And because the components that we're building are so large, the industry really needs ports that are also deep water ports. And so Connecticut actually has 2, Bridgeport and New London. And so, you know, we're really at a point where, you know, Connecticut will be a hub for offshore wind for the region. So it's very exciting.
Thank you, Juliemar. I thought you were going to say location, 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 right?
That too.
Well, we've come to the end of our time. Before I pass it back to Dan, I just wanted to thank all of the panelists for participating with me today. I hope everyone on today's call really learned a little bit more about what everyone is trying to do to advance the workforce and understand the hiring requirements that we have, and really just encourage all the businesses to get to the table. And again, we have the jobs that need to get filled, so we need to have a voice in trying to keep people here in Connecticut and build a thriving community. So Colin, thank you again for joining. I'll pass it back to you, Dan.
Thanks so much, Bill, for moderating that discussion. And thanks again to Bank of America for the support and all you've done around this conversation around workforce development. And to our panelists, of course, for taking the time out of the day. Gosh, I can't believe we're already up at 1:30. I have questions of my own I'd like to ask. And I know Bill had prepared some other questions. But this is going to be an ongoing dialogue. As I mentioned at the top of this program, this is the 3rd part of a series that we started a few months back. We do anticipate on picking up the discussion again in the fall, but specifically related to manufacturing and our sector partnership. As I mentioned, we're going to officially launch at the end of this month. We're really excited about it, where again, we'll have dozens of manufacturers on and really starting to kickstarting the conversation around workforce development and how do we address some of the issues that are specific here to the greater Bridgeport region and our manufacturers. So we're excited about that. So with that, if you have any questions around the partnership, around manufacturing or anything of that nature, please feel free to message us at the BRBC. I'll add my contact information in the chat in a moment, but it's an offrio@brbc.org. And we will certainly get answers to your questions addressed and get back to you on best ways to connect with all the conversations that we're having around workforce development and our partners around the area. So finally, I'd like to also thank all of our supporting sponsors of today's event. These things don't happen on their own. It takes a commitment from not just the volunteers and the effort put in by the business community, but also by the organizations themselves. And it just shows the strong relationship of partnerships we have with many organizations, including Bank of America, Birch and Moses, Fairfield County Communities Foundation, Ganem Financial, Hanford Research, People's United Bank, Southern Connecticut UI, which is part of the Avangrid family, the Town of Stratford's Economic and Community Development Commission, and of course, Yale New Haven Health at Bridgeport Hospital. So we thank them again for their support for putting on this conversation and making it basically accessible to the community at large. And we just thank you for your time this afternoon and look forward to continuing the conversation. And like I said, any questions, comments, or suggestions, we've got a lot of irons in the fire at the Business Council and the chambers, but together we get a lot of things done. And as you can see, we've got a lot happening across the entire organization and the region. So thanks again, Bill, Colin, all our panelists, all of our sponsors. It was, I believe, a really wonderful session and look forward to continuing this dialogue as we move along. Okay, with that, have a great afternoon, everyone.
So much.
Be well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.